I mean, we could talk like for hours on this. It's for me, it's always been a layered marketing approach. So a little bit of everything, right? So digital marketing, of course, but a lot of direct mail, a lot of, farming specific areas, a mixture of flyers and letters and postcards that are going out on a consistent basis. If I do have buyers, which I have, I don't know, I mean, I have a database of them, but I also have legit buyers who are like ready to, close tomorrow. I'm writing handwritten letters to sellers in these neighborhoods that are saying, I legit have a buyer. Here's her picture and her name. They want to buy in this community. Are you considering selling? So that is the level of service that I think these buyers need to, when they're working with an agent. Like, I've
definitely thought about that.
Yeah.
I have like one buyer right now, which is nice, right? It's like my first.
Yeah, it's exciting.
First buyer, right?
Yes.
And we're looking in the Port St. Lucie area, and obviously things are just, if it's on the market today, it'll be gone tomorrow.
Crazy.
And so, how do we get creative to find something there? But so the market's just the market
bonkers.
Is what it is. So.
It's bonkers, yeah. I would say because same thing. Working with buyers, it's like setting the expectations and just getting them as prepared as possible. And I think the longer, I have a client who we finally got them new construction in Port St. Lucie, because for I'd say a couple of months they were looking at the resales because they wanted a house with a pool. New construction homes are not being built with a pool. You got to put a pool in after the case. They might have a community pool, but most builders are not putting pools in. So at a certain price point. Luxury, yes, most of the time they have pools. But anyway, for a while we were looking at the resales, and yes, I mean, it goes on the market one day, it's 7 offers on it, forget it, you don't have a chance, especially if you have a house that you have to sell. A lot of people...
No more contingent offers. And
it's crazy, yeah, it's so really the biggest thing to do in that case is you have to have your finances so... in order. You have to have that pre-approval, not a pre-qual. You have to explain to the buyers what the difference between Rocket Mortgage pre-qualification that you type in, and they spit something out versus a actual pre-approved desktop underwritten approval from a lender is, and what that process entails. And it's like doing all this due diligence up front to get the lender everything they need so that yes, we can close quick. We have everything. You are 100% approved, ready to go. And I think that with a lot of buyers, maybe in the beginning, they might say, well, they're not incentivized, or they don't feel motivated to get their docs into a lender. But once you take them out and they see, oh, that went under contract, you we have to be able to jump.
The house they looked at today,
right, it's gone.
Oh, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, especially if we have to wait 24 hours to get a pre-approval from a lender, forget it. You have to have all this stuff up front and ready to go, and have that auto notification, and work with a buyer agent who knows those markets. And they have their ear to the ground, and they know, oh, this neighbor's about to list soon, or this one's coming on the market next week. Let me call that listing agent and see if they'll just let us in for a quick peek. Or let's put an offer in sight unseen. Not every listing agent will accept that, but let's put an offer in the second it comes on, full price. We have our inspection period to do our due diligence, but let's lock it up. So there's so many different strategies that you can use depending on the market right now.
Very cool. What is that? I'm trying to think. Take me through a scenario like that where you have a buyer and this one house or these couple of houses in this one area, they're going really quick. What is your strategy for getting in that house that they want?
Yeah, so it depends where that buyer is coming from. So I feel like the virtual buyer, the people who are out of state, out of town buyers, they get it, and they put a lot of faith and trust in their buyer agent, and that's gold, and that's so valuable. And because they know they're out of state, there's no way they're going to get here to view the property. They're relying on that agent to know the market, do a virtual tour for them, get them in the door, and lock it up. So those buyers seem to be a lot more on top of it because they know they have to rely on one person down here for them. They have to do exactly what that agent tells them to do if they want this house. Whereas down here, when you're in the market, you know, every day homes come on and off the market. So there's open houses, buyers will drive past it. So maybe there's not the same sense of urgency for some local buyers here because they're like, oh, if we miss this one, we'll get the next one. But when the time comes that they have to move, or for whatever reason it is job relo or they're selling, then I think it's, again, it goes back to making sure their finances are in order. The biggest part of it too is if they have a house to sell, and so what we call move-up buyers, right? Or even if they're downsizing. So they have to sell their current home to be able to get those proceeds and purchase the next home. So they basically have two options. One, they can sell their home, take the money, rent for a while, and then take their time to find the next home. Most people don't want to do that because they don't want to have to put their stuff in storage. They want to move right into the next
money.
Yeah, they have to rent. You got to find a rental. Like, that's a whole nother process in itself. Or you can, you know, try to time it so that you sell and close on the new home in that same day. It happens all the time. It's common practice here. There's a lot of moving parts. It has to be very well, you know, coordinated and organized, but it happens all the time. But in this market, when homes are selling so quick, you got to strategize. You got to write a really strong offer to convince the seller to accept your buyer's offer, knowing that they have a house to sell. So what does that mean? Well, you got to have that house on the market and probably under contract. And it probably has to be past the inspection period. So if they have a house to sell and they're like, well, but we don't want to, because a common thing you'll hear from buyers is, well, but what happens when we put our house on the market and it sells? We're not going to have anywhere to go. We're going to feel rushed. Yes, like that.
Right now, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
Right now, that is the option. Or the first option, sell it. If you have friends and family, you can stay with for some time, or try a lease back. You know, like you can do close and then do a post-closing occupancy if the new buyers will allow you to stay in the home for a little bit time while you're still looking for your new home. So there's so many different ways to structure the contract that will benefit them. But if they have to sell in order to buy, then they have to have their house on the market, most likely under contract, and that contract really has to be past the inspection period for a seller to feel comfortable.
So for a seller to feel comfortable, you're really looking at only probably a 15 to 20 day gap of that they have to make their decision. Yeah,
I mean, listen, every seller has their own motivation, right? If it's a seller whose house has been on the market for a year, they might be a lot more open and willing to work with that buyer. If it's a seller who has 5 other offers, why would they possibly take your offer over someone else's who doesn't have a house to sell? It just won't happen. So, and I've even written up offers that are over asking price, but because they have that contingency, the seller still did not accept it. And I don't really blame them, because when they have other offers on the table that have one less contingency on them, it's more likely to close for them.
And that seller probably has to go buy something else.
They may have a contingency on their home, exactly. So it has this domino effect, this ripple effect that, you know, it's like a case-by-case basis. You have to know the motivation and timing for both the buyers and the sellers. And I mean, there's addendums, there's different ways to structure the contract. There's a kick-out clause that you could put in place. Like I mentioned, there's a post-occupancy clause that you could put in there. So there's things that you can do to try to,
What is a kick-out clause?
Okay, so a kick-out clause it's a great feature for a seller to accept an offer that has a contingency on that buyer having to sell their home. It allows the seller to continue marketing the property. So they typically put it in backup status, but they can continue marketing it and showing the property and trying to get another buyer to come on. Okay, so they're under contract with the first buyer, but they have this kick-out clause which allows them to continue marketing it to get another buyer. Now, if they get another buyer who does not have a contingency, they give that first buyer, the original guy, basically first right of refusal, saying, if you want this house, you have to take off the contingency. You have to remove your contingency and move forward with buying the house.
Because I have another guy.
Because I have another guy who's ready to go. Yeah. So, and you know, at that point, like in time, maybe the buyer has their house under contract and they're past the inspection period and they are confident that, you know what, I'm going to take the risk here, but I'm pretty confident my house is going to sell and close. So, okay, I'll remove the contingency and move forward with buying it without. Other people might say, I don't feel comfortable. I'm scared. You know, I'll take off. You know, we'll cancel the contract.
Got it.
Yeah, but it's a great tool.
So how are you making? What does a strong offer look like from you when you make an offer? I mean, is it just monetary, or is it, what does that look like? No, it's not. It's like the whole term. So, and I also go back to saying the relationship between the buyer agent and the listing agent is important. I'm not saying that they have to be friends. This industry is so small, so most people like... Is it? There's like 50,000 agents. There's 50,000. There's probably more than that, but like 5% of them are actual full-time top producing agents who do most of the business here. Small. And that circle is small. Okay. So like you can see, I'm trying to get in that circle. Yeah, you and me both. Like, I mean, like little by little. Yeah, but you see, I mean, some of the bigger teams, you just know who you're working with, you know, like you know they're a professional group. You're going to have a good, you know, good process, a good transaction with them. So regardless, it's just building that professional relationship with that other agent.